I guess.
Got it. We're recorded. Terrific. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is the second night of Talk with the Cops, Talk with the Cops 2. We love that word, that phrase, because it's so engaging and people really have an idea of what it means, and yet they don't. And there's so many possibilities. And so for those of you who joined us on Monday, thank you for coming back. All right, this is Talk with the Cops 2, the training session. So today and for those of you who didn't join, it doesn't matter, that we'll be doing the training session anyway, and you will get up to speed very quickly. But today we're rejoining for what we're calling the interactive training session. And these are community members and police professionals and facilitators, and more instruction on empathic listening, the skill which makes listening much more effective. Our goal today will be that you leave with very specific empathy skills and get more practice in these skills, each of you, and make sure you have tools to bring these valuable skills back to your agency or your community. That's really our goal. So just a little housekeeping, as I mentioned before, I'll say it again for people who are joining, so that we can create good groups of participants with various backgrounds and interests. Indicate in front of your name, P. If you are in law enforcement, please put a P in front of your name. If you are a community and a community member, please put a C in front of your name. Here's one that we didn't mention before, and that is many of these sessions will be recorded. In fact, this main session is being recorded. But sometimes people are in a position where they don't wish to be recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please put NR before your name so that you will be in a breakout room that is not recorded. Now, if you end up in a breakout room that may be recorded and you have NR in front of your name, you can ask them to pause the recording if you like, or we can move you to a different room. We do understand that sometimes law enforcement officers are on duty or in vehicles and cannot be recorded, and so it's something that we need to offer in terms of not being recorded. But I will say a word on recording, and that is the information that comes out of these sessions is enormously valuable. Many of you who are here know that. And we would love to share these recordings with other police agencies who couldn't be here today, and also broadly in the industry, in order to demonstrate the power of what empathic listening means for criminal justice and for policing. So if you really do not wish to be recorded, please place NR before your name, or you can ask a facilitator to pause the recording when you speak. We have a number of people coming in. I think I'll talk a little bit about criminal justice and what we call procedural justice, and I'll go back to the naming convention because I've said it just a moment ago. So last time I mentioned procedural justice when we joined together. And I talked about the idea of fair processes. Procedural justice, as many of you know from law enforcement, is a concept in criminal justice. It speaks to how people's perception of fairness is strongly impacted by the quality of their experiences and not by the outcome of those experiences. So now you might be wondering what that means if you hadn't heard an example. Here's a different example from Monday. A cop comes to the door to serve a warrant, but the person they're looking for isn't there or doesn't live there. The head of the household may be at the door, or the person answering the door. They're going to leave this encounter with certain perceptions of this experience. They have to. They've had an experience. But what are they likely to be? Well, research shows that people's perceptions of this encounter and encounters like it depend less on the outcome than more on whether they felt they were treated in a procedurally just way. So procedurally just, what does that mean? It means that people feel seen and heard. It means people got an opportunity to speak. It means that when they were being asked questions, did they get an opportunity to explain themselves, to explain that there was no one at the door, or did the police just come in anyway because they could? So the likely perceptions of encounters are based so much on people's perception of encounters. And what that means is listening, very specific listening skills, which make policing and public safety much more effective. We're Police to Peace. We're a national nonprofit, and we sponsor this event because listening to people and being empathic is foundational to police being peace officers, which is what we promote within the nation. And peace officers engaging in procedural justice, that form of justice where people feel seen, heard, and valued, where the quality of their experience is impacting their perception of what happened, not just the outcome. So later in the session, we're going to explain these very specific empathy skills. You may know that if you've already been here. We're going to provide practice in these skills. Each of you are going to go into breakout rooms very shortly. And we're going to give you the tools to bring these valuable skills back to your agency. And then also at the end, we'll all come back in about an hour And then we'll have follow-on events that you can attend to further hone your interest in this area. So for those of you who've joined us, we'll talk about the naming convention. And if you look in the chat, you will see it. We want to create groups of people who have different backgrounds. Many law enforcement were invited, and many community members are here as well. So if you represent law enforcement, please put a P in front of your name. If you're a community member, please put a C in front of your name. If you do not wish to be recorded for some reason, please put an NR in front of your name. And so you can put an NR and a P. You could put an NR and a C, and we will know what that means. It helps us put you in breakout rooms to have the best experience. So I think that pretty much covers it, and I will shift this over to Lou, our wonderful host for this event. Lou, take it away.
Thanks very much, Lisa. So hi, everyone. I'm Lou Zweier. I'm here representing the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, which was founded by Edwin Rutsch, who's also here today in the room. And the mission of building the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy is to bring empathy as a primary value into society, more into society, helping to try to create a society that has more understanding, more openness, and more treating people with respect and dignity, which aligns very well with what Lisa was talking about with procedural justice. So today, and one of the primary things that the Center for Culture of Empathy has done in order to kind of fulfill its mission is to develop this practice called the Empathy Circle practice, which is a mutual listening practice. And you're going to learn about it mostly by doing it today. So we're very much a learn by doing group. I will talk about it a little bit, but experiencing it actually is the most important thing for you to do to try to understand it. How many people here were here at the session Monday? Would you raise your hands? Not facilitators, not including facilitators. Thank you, just participants. So some people, but not everyone. So we're working with a mixed group. Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to know that. So the Empathy Circle practice is a structure that guides people to do mutual listening and to develop empathy for one another, really to develop understanding, mutual understanding of one another. It's not about trying to convince people of something or argue with people, or like I said, convince someone of something, one point of view or another. It's really about trying to create mutual understanding or to create space for mutual understanding. And the goal of the Empathy Circle is for each person in the group to have a chance to speak about what's important to them and to be heard for that. And the reason that the circle, this practice has a structure, is because if you look what happens in normal small groups, if you're in a group and there's just conversation happening, what happens is some people like to talk more than other people, and they will talk more than other people. And often the people that like to talk a lot will get into kind of arguments with each other, and other people will not talk at all. That's kind of the normal dynamic of what happens in a group, or even between two people. Lisa gave the example of a police officer that goes to the door with a warrant, and what happens in that interaction, even between two people? Is there actually listening that goes on between those two people, or do they wind up getting into an argument? And so the structure of the Empathy Circle practice causes people to slow down and to listen to each other. And that is what you're going to get a chance to experience when we do this practice. And so I'm going to explain, next I'll just explain how it works, because not everyone was here on Monday. And then we'll be going into breakout rooms of 3 people and a facilitator. And the facilitators, they're the people that have ECF before their name in the room. And these are all people who've been through our Empathy Circle facilitator practice, and they've facilitated a lot of circles. So here's how it works. The idea is that everyone gets a chance to speak and be heard. So one person will take a speaking turn, and the turns are timed. This is how we have mutuality built into the process, is that the speaking turns are timed. So someone will take, let's say, a 4-minute speaking turn. And before they start speaking, they will select someone else in the circle to reflect back what they are saying. And if that person agrees, then the speaker starts talking. And after the speaker gets an idea or two out, they pause. And the person who is the reflector reflects back what they understand the person is saying. Everybody in the circle is listening to the speaker, giving them their full attention. But one person is reflecting back what they understand the speaker is saying. Now, the reflector is not doing things that people typically do in a conversation. So the reflector is not asking questions. They're not agreeing or disagreeing or commenting on what the speaker is saying or adding their own information and their own experience. Those are things that people typically do in response to what someone says. In this case, in the empathy circle practice, the only thing that the reflector does is reflect back what they understand the person is trying to get across, what they're trying to say, and maybe how they feel about it. So if the reflector reflects back what you've said, if it's accurate, you say yes and go on, say some more. If not, you might say, well, you got this part, but you missed this part that was important to me, and then try to say it again. Or if the person misses it completely, you can say, no, that's not it. That wasn't it at all. This is what I was trying to say. And so the speaking and the listening go back and forth like that until your time is up. And one of the things the facilitator does is keep time. So the facilitator will let you know when your time is up. And then at the end of the speaker's time, the person who is doing the reflecting becomes the speaker. And they select another person in the circle to become their reflector. And they do that. They start speaking. So in that way, the speaking and the reflecting go around the circle. Everybody gets a chance to speak and have what they're saying be reflected and understood. And that process slows things down to where the speaker feels heard because they're being reflected, and the speaker also has more of a chance kind of reflect on what they're saying, as does everyone else in the circle. And because that is one of the key things to creating mutual understanding is slowing the conversation down. And really, the reflecting part really helps people hear one another. And if you include the feelings, then it also means people feel understood for how they're feeling also. And the other things that the facilitator will do during the session is, they will keep time and they'll give time signals. The second thing they'll do is they might remind the speaker to pause after getting an idea or two out, because if the speaker keeps going, the reflector, it'll be too overwhelming for the reflector. You won't be able to reflect back. And we don't normally pause that often, so that's kind of a new thing. And then if the reflector falls into one of the things that we normally do, we have habits of doing, which is asking questions or making comments or agreeing or disagreeing or something like that, the facilitator will just remind the speaker that your job really, the listener, the reflector, your job is really just to reflect back what you're hearing. Okay. The topic of the circle tonight that we're going to do is, what are your thoughts, feelings, and concerns about being an empathy circle facilitator? So the focus of this session is that you all who are here might be interested in actually learning this practice and taking it into your organization or into other parts of your life. And so what do you think about it? What do you think it'd be like to be a facilitator? What are your concerns and thoughts about that, your feelings about that? And one of the rules of Empathy Circle also is that when it's your turn to speak, if you should speak about what's important to you. And if that's something other than the selected topic, you're free to speak about that. The way that you keep the circle meaningful to yourself is to talk about what's important to you in the moment, even if that's off the main, whatever topic's been selected. Okay, so we are pretty much on time. I think that pretty much explains it. Uh, Bill or Edwin, do you have anything to add to what I've said before we go into the circles?
No, no.
Okay, great then. So you're going to get an invitation in a second, or actually just get moved into a circle with a facilitator and other participants. We'll be doing this process for about an hour, maybe a hair more, and then we'll be coming back into the main room to hear your feedback and to give you information about the full training if you would like to get more training in this process. So Edwin, I'll give it to you. I think you're opening the rooms.
Okay, so we have more facilitators than we need. So Michelle and Payal, since you don't need to take part for that, just want to let you know. There'll be a couple of rooms with several facilitators. So just to let you know that. And we're going for an hour, you're going for about a little bit more than an hour in this part. So we are ready to go into the circles, and the topic was posted in the chat, and I'll just post it again so you'll be able to reference it. And here we go into our breakout rooms.
Thanks, Edwin. See you all on the other side.
So just to let you know, recording, and Linda will be the facilitator.
Thank you very much, Edwin. All right, has everyone participated in an empathy circle at least once?
Yes.
All right, good. So we can get started. You can speak on the question. What are your thoughts, feelings, and concerns about becoming a facilitator and facilitating an empathy circle? Or you can, if some of you were here Monday, want to continue the conversation about policing and bridging the gap, or whatever is alive for you. So I'm going to start off by being the first listener. I have a timer here. That's weird. Why is it doing that? Okay. And when your time is up, probably are just preaching to the choir. I'll hold this sign up until the speaker acknowledges they see it. You don't need to finish. Just stop in the middle of your sentence, finish your thought. And if you're speaking at that time, we will give the listener an opportunity to reframe. Okay, I'll listen to Katrina if she wants to talk to me for 4 minutes, and then we'll keep moving, keep it moving. You have 4 minutes, and we're asked to speak in small chunks because our little brains can only hold so much, especially if we got to give it right back to you. So if you tend to get carried away, I'll hold up this sign. I'm guilty of that myself because I talk too much sometimes. So, all right, Katrina. Oh, any questions before we start? All right, great. All right, Katrina, you can start.
Hey, everyone. Thank you. It's lovely to be here. I'm from Australia. And I've been facilitating empathy cafes here in Australia. But our illustrious leader, Aurora Geoffrey, has moved states, so now I'll be setting up and holding the whole empathy cafe thing. So I'm feeling some fear.
Okay, so you're from Australia, and apparently the guy, I don't remember the name, but he left, and now you're going to be the one holding the empathy cafes in Australia. Very good.
Yeah, well, it's a she. Her name was Aurora, and yeah, I'll be the ones holding them in Melbourne, so in the south of Australia.
Okay, so you clarified it's going to be in Melbourne. You will be in Melbourne, holding them in Melbourne. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel pretty comfortable about facilitating a group, like in an empathy cafe event. That feels pretty good, but the whole facilitating the whole thing and inviting people in and that kind of stuff, I feel a bit scared about, like introducing the whole concept. But you know, I feel like I'm ready to do it.
So what I heard you say, Katrina, is that you feel very comfortable actually conducting the circle, but that whole administrative process of putting the word out there, getting people in, timing, and getting it set up is a little, you think it's going to be a little bit challenging, but you're up for it.
Yep, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and then, so that's that. But the thing that I'd really like to talk about is how to hold empathy conversations, like style conversations in the outside world, like in a situation with the cops or with where there's an argument happening or something like that, how to do that, bring it to the world. It feels like I need to kind of soften the edges a bit and tune into the energy of the space and gently slow it down.
Okay.
It might be reactive.
So you're thinking about and questioning, how do you take this process and engage it on a real level outside of the control circle, as if you were interacting with a police officer? What exactly would you do? And you're thinking maybe you have to soften the edges a little bit to be able to respond appropriately to the space that you're in.
Yeah, because you know, like people go, well, yeah, I just said that. Like, you know, people might, yeah, not be used to the culture. So, and I've heard somebody else say that they've used a similar technique just to you know, it's like copycat stuff, you know, like, I don't know if you have that in the US, you know, well, you're just copying what I'm saying. Like, yeah, like people, yeah. So how to adapt it to fit.
So, yeah, your concern basically is for the people that aren't knowledgeable about the process and don't understand it. And what if you're saying it back to them, they may get insulted and think that you're parenting them or copying them, as you say. So yeah, those are some thoughts that you've been given to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's time. I finished that thought.
Good. All right. So now I get to pick someone to speak to.
Yep.
Who will that be? I think Edwin.
Listening.
Okay, I'm going to continue with that question that Katrina had, because that's come up in my group that you made a presentation to about empathy circles and mediation as well. That, you know, there was conversation about, well, you're not expressing, you're just reframing and repeating back to them what they're saying, but you're not getting in touch with their feelings or emotions. And so they would, you know, that was the discussion. You know, and I've really been thinking a lot about that, because while we're in this, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you're kind of wanting to build on what Katrina said about, and you've had something similar come up in the mediation group that you have worked with about how to bring empathy into the more of the felt experience. They were sort of critical, like, oh, you're not really dealing with feelings or something. So how do you do this more in the world, in with outside of the circle?
Yeah, and that's something that's I've been thinking about. Is, you know, I was saying the other day that even in my group friends, my social group, I don't tell them that we're going to participate in an empathy circle. it's more for, it's for me, not more for me, it's for me to practice my skills of listening, even though it's just chatter, you know, we're saying a lot of crazy stuff, but it's for me to practice my listening. And when I do respond, I try to be succinct because I can talk a lot, and hoping they will catch on to what's going on and they'll model that behavior.
So you're taking part in the empathy circle to improve your listening. So when you're with your friends, that you can listen better, and you think that that will, so you don't like formally reflect back. We just do a better job at listening. You hope that that will influence your friends.
Yeah, I think people can learn by modeling. And
Mhm.
now, if I was in a formal setting where I was actually engaged in something professional or, you know, very important or political or whatever, I would say to the a brainstorming session, I may not call it the empathy circle because some people, they, you know, very into are into words, so they'll be going, oh. So I'll just say, this is our listening session, and this is the process we're going to use, where each person will, and then tell them the process, just change the label, but it's still soup.
Yeah, they're changing the soup can label. This is just listening. It's not empathy, because they might take the, if it's listening, they might eat the soup.
Yeah, because I really have been thinking about how to engage this process or use this project in public and to get it out more. I guess the more I listen to politicians and people on the street talking to journalists, and it's just like, it's just, sometimes I think we're all saying the same thing. We're just saying it in different ways, or that level of frustration is coming out. I don't know.
So you're seeing a level of frustration comes out in conversations. People are saying the same things, but maybe not really hearing each other.
Yes, and they're just prone to defend. They're just, it's automatic. Whatever you say, I've seen the most innocent thing on a, you know, posted, and people will take it and go off trail, and it becomes an argument, or adversarial, as adversarial as you can be on Facebook.
So it just little things can set off an argument or put people at odds with each other. It's the smallest things. You just notice that happened. Can happen. Okay, time.
Thank you.
Then I'll speak. Thanks. I'll speak to Danielle. Danielle, and you're muted. The aspect of, I see this as sort of a training. One part of this, what we're doing here, is a training ground. So it's like doing exercise. You do the exercise, the lift the weights, do the yoga, do the stretches, and then it does influence me, and I think it influences anyone when you go out into the world. You have that greater strength, let's say, or greater flexibility, that you do take that out in the world with you.
Okay, so you see this as a training ground, as an opportunity to exercise such skills, and that gives everybody people an opportunity to go out into the world and make use of the capacity they've gained from exercising.
Yeah, people tell me that, oh, I did this empathy circle, then I went with my family, and I was able to like not get triggered or upset right away when my father talked to me. I was able to listen more to him. So it just adds to that resilience of not getting, what Linda's talking about, getting, you know, irritated and aggravated and getting defensive. I guess you have more space to really hear where the other person is.
Yeah, you like it because it wards off unnecessary arguments. I know that's not the words you use, but and it improves our resiliency talking with people. It helps inoculate us against triggering each other, and so it has beneficial effects.
Yeah, I do see that if we could train everyone in the country and the world for that matter in these skills, like for example, if we had Trump and Biden, Joe Biden, do an empathy circle, everyone would have learned the practice. You know, we could have high profile people, and then people would say, oh, we're having an argument, I'm not feeling heard. They could ask for the empathy circle, say, oh, do you mind if we use the empathy circle or empathic listening to discuss this? Because it would help me to be more grounded or something.
Hmm. So you see this as an attempt to model a more productive way of people talking with each other. And if we get a lot more people doing this, and then especially if we can get high profile people talking with this technique, that would really make our discussions in our society much better and much healthier.
Yeah.
And so it is a matter of sort of like cultivating skills, uh, beginning with some people who really go for it, but then spreading it to sharing it with everybody.
And then building on it, because these are the foundational skills for mediation. So what we're doing here is, if you have family conflict, you say, okay, we need a family empathy circle. We have if everybody was like attuned to, oh yeah, of course we need that. It's a logical thing. We're not communicating. We have a conflict, so we need to do it. So we need to make that a natural, like the next step. So I do see that as, yeah.
So this technique builds on practices that mediators developed, but it would be nice to bring it into everyday life so that people can use it in their own families when they have difficult relationships with people. And again, it would just be a lot healthier for society if this type of practice would be disseminated, would spread among all kinds of people.
I feel fully heard, and that's my time. Thanks.
Not so easy. Oh, I guess I'm supposed to talk?
Yes.
Yeah. Apologies in advance in case you start hearing a piano playing. My wife has piano lessons at home. Well, I've been a facilitator
Wait,
for.
did you pick someone? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm supposed to pick somebody. Okay.
Excuse me.
Jane hasn't talked, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Well, I've done a whole bunch of facilitating, but not with any special technique. Although I do like to kind of recapitulate what people say. It's just something I think I've always enjoyed doing. Especially, I've done quite a bit of teaching, and I do that.
You've done what you said was that you've done a lot of facilitating, and when you teach, you do that also.
Yeah. But I do see this as an opportunity to add to my toolkit, so to speak. And I do really support this idea, because I do think I agreeing with others that at least in America, people have become so judgmental. People have become, in my experience, really poor at listening to each other. I can't tell you how many times I've been in conversations where people jump to conclusions about what I'm saying long before I ever get there. And it always contradicts what I actually had in mind.
You really support this technique and this idea, because when people seem to jump to conclusions about what other people are saying, including you, you have a number of occasions when it's just happened to you.
Yeah, and it's really upsetting. Now, I do have, I guess you call it a minor reservation. When I hear the word empathy, I think about people sharing feelings, and I'll be honest, I'm a little distrustful of that. I think feelings are best experienced rather than talked about, because I guess it's my own prejudice to think that it's actually much harder to really get what people's feelings are than people think it is. And so I think we do get better at understanding each other's feelings just by having good conversation rather than dwelling on the feelings as such.
So you do have a reservation, and that's the empathy, idea of empathy. And because it takes such a long time for people to really understand who each other are and what they're saying.
Yeah, and I'm a total bookworm, and I've done a lot of social theory, political philosophy, that kind of thing. There's a wonderful book I read on empathy that was written back around World War I, It's called sympathy, but it's in German, and I found what's really interesting. It is impossible to translate. Even the vocabulary, all the different words for empathy-like concepts, nobody's figured out how to translate them. So that's really intriguing to me.
You are familiar with a book. It was, I think, you said World War One was written
Written around then, yeah.
in German, and one of the interesting things about it is that it's not translatable.
Right. And so that's another reason why I'm a little distrustful talking about feelings, because I have a sense of just how how difficult it is. And I guess it's sort of a minor pet peeve of mine. I don't like it when people ask, well, what are you feeling now? I never know what to say.
A reservation that you have is about talking about feelings because you never know really what to say.
I always am tempted to say, well, just listen to me, and you can probably figure out my feelings as well or better than I can. So why ask me?
So you have a response to that, which is why ask me. You probably know as best as I do.
Yeah, but I do find this whole approach very appealing because it really is very, oh, okay, I'm done. I said more than enough.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I just said I guess I'm done.
Yeah.
I said more than enough as it is.
Okay. So now Jane gets to pick someone to listen
Okay.
to her.
How about Katrina?
Sure, Jane, I'd love to reflect what you say.
Well, I really like the idea of circles, and to have one that's called an empathy circle is really interesting to me. I participated yesterday, or I guess it was Monday, and I found it especially useful in that kind of situation.
So you really like the idea of circles, and well, you like circles, and the idea of empathy is attractive to you, and you participated yet on Monday, and yeah, it feels like sounds
So
like that you enjoyed it.
yeah, so I kind of like the use of this in a more informal structured thing. I don't think that I would use it with my family or even with my friends unless they knew what was happening, what it was called, why we were doing it, what the ground rules were.
So you prefer to do this in a formal structure thing. You can't see it being useful with your family or in life outside of a formal circle.
I think people pick up when you're doing some kind of formal thing like this if they haven't been told, and so I think they'd be willing to participate, but maybe if they heard what the ground rules were.
Yeah. So you think people will pick up that we're doing something formal, and they're more likely to participate if you straight up with them, clear with them what we're doing.
And I like for me, the participation is I like to be able to say, this is what I heard you say, and to make sure it was clear. It's for me as well as for them to see. I like that interaction. And it's very helpful. It helps me to understand where people are coming from.
Yeah. So that said, you like the process of saying to somebody, this is what I heard you say, because it helps you and them find clarity.
Yeah, and I like being listened to. And the way I know that somebody heard what I say is when they do that. If they actually say, well, this is what I heard you say, because oftentimes people are like, well, they spent all that time listening, thinking of what they were going to say.
Mm. Mm. So you like being listened to, and what really helps you to know that you're being listened to is when people repeat back, this is what I heard you say, because otherwise you suspect they're just thinking about what they're going to say in response.
Mm-hmm. So I just, as far as yesterday or 2 days ago, when we didn't get far enough on it, there was so much more to say, but we certainly did lay the groundwork, and I think a longer discussion would work very well.
Mm.
And I think you can start. I think a good place to start this kind of discussion is with the people that want to be in it. And that's where we started, I think, on whatever day this is, Wednesday. So Monday.
Mm. Yeah, so you appreciated the conversation on Monday, and you laid the groundwork really well. You clear how it works, and you think that the best way to start this type of conversation is with people who want to be in it. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think I saw my time thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Linda, will you listen to me?
Sure.
Yeah.
No problem.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because I hear what Jane was saying and what Daniel was saying and what everybody was saying, Edwin as well, and Linda. I think that is how to do it in the outside world, like to just say, yeah, this is what I heard you say. Is that right? That's a way to bring it outside of the formal structure. Use the exercise, use the fitness that we've gained, as Edwin said, in the outside world. And the thing about feelings, yeah, I hear you. Most of us aren't tuned in, Daniel, to our feelings. But yeah.
Okay, so you're taking in what everybody has said, and you when I'm thinking about something else. Oh my God. Okay, wait a minute. I was thinking about what you were finna say, and I was cutting you off. That when we have this communication, you're saying something about, as Jane was saying, about how to use it outside, and you think this is the way to use it, to just tell people, and that's where I'm not sure you were saying to ask people if they heard what you say, or tell people what you heard them say. So I'm not sure which one was that, but yeah, you believe in exercising and building the empathetic muscles.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Yeah, what I said was the way that Jane said it, which is, this is what I heard you say. So when I'm listening, just repeat back rather than asking people. Yeah, and so then the feelings thing, I think what I've learned is to just tune in to the feelings of others and draw them out, oh, so it seems like you're feeling sad. Maybe you're feeling sad about that.
And so you feel like we need to, well, your thought is to focus a little bit more on the feelings, or zoom in, or get in tune with the feelings and draw them out, and to actually say, oh, you seem sad about that, or whatever feeling it is.
Yeah, as a listener, to tune in to the feelings rather than necessarily ask people what they're feeling.
Okay, as a listener, to tune into the feelings rather than asking people what they're feeling.
Unless it's appropriate, it's like you got to read the situation. Hey. Yeah.
Yes, you do have to read I hear you say you have to read the situation, make sure it's an appropriate time and place.
Yeah. Yeah, and so if we're actually heard, like I know for myself, if somebody's actually listening to me, actually there for me, I'm more likely to tune in, to be in touch with my feelings because I feel safe.
So when you're speaking with someone, if you can tell that they're listening, that they're tuned into you, you feel more safe. If you get the feeling they're listening, actually mindful, listening to you.
And
That's
when I
what it
feel
is.
more safe, then the feelings are more available to me, or at least I'm able to notice my feelings more.
Also, when they tune into you and you know that they are in tune with your feelings, you feel safe and more ready to let them flow or expose, not expose. What's the word? I can't think of it. But show your feelings more.
Yeah.
Flow.
Yeah. So it's funny going around the circle. It's like, yeah, thanks. I hear that. I see that it's time to just sort of answer my own question. It's just like little bits, bringing it into the wider world.
Okay. So as we go around the circles, just little bits that's bringing it clarity to the wider world.
Yeah, on how to use the technique in the right
On
way.
how to use the technique. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I feel heard.
Good. I'll speak to Daniel.
Oh.
I was listening to Jane too, and I, thinking, and I'm probably overthinking it, which is what I do sometimes. But this process, this empathetic listening, is a process, and so it is controlled. It has its boundaries, it has the rules, the regulations, and so as long as you stay in, you're doing the process, you're working the process, and so I can see how it could be. I think I just lost myself a minute. I see it as a controlled environment. It's a control.
So you see this empathic circles as being a kind of process that's got its own rules. And so it's controlled,
Yeah.
rather than just sort of spontaneous.
Yes, and it's kind of tracking with bringing it into the everyday use. We have it's a technique, and I made notes here. If I were to engage with a group of friends, professionals, colleagues, whatever, and say, it would be I would be better served if I was within a tent or within a structure with walls, because it's a technique inside a structure. And the circle, it either be a square circle or, I'm just thinking of all the physical attributes that would have to be in place to make it work, as opposed to just somebody interacting with a police officer on the street.
So to take this technique and put it in the real world and everyday experience, it can only be done under certain conditions. It should be some kind of controlled environment, some kind of structure, a tent, with I guess a certain number of people in it, so that it can proceed in a controlled way. It can't just sort of happen accidentally on the street.
Yeah, so the square peg can fit in the square hole, and then so you have the people, and they know what they're there for. Even if it was a family situation, you would tell the family that's what they're there for. This is what the goal is. This is how the process works, and you can have a brainstorming session or a productive family discussion to resolve some kind of issue. And like Jay said, you let everybody know. So there's the purpose of us doing this circle or getting together to have this talk. But when it comes to engaging with a police officer or anyone else, just individually on the street, I'm going back to that. And you wouldn't tell them, because they'll go, well, what's empathetic listening? And you got to explain all of that and go through all of that. But in terms of using it as a tool to calm the situation down, I can see that. I can see it being useful.
So you didn't use this expression, but I think you were talking about to engage in this kind of conversation requires ground rules and that you sort of have to set out beforehand. Otherwise, it can't really work. So even if you sit down with members of your family for a discussion and you want to do it this way, you really have to make sure everybody agrees beforehand that this is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So to do it one-on-one, like with a police officer on the street, probably wouldn't work. It needs to be a group.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about it. I've been known to get a few speeding tickets when I was working. I've slowed down quite a bit. And, so you engage, some of them are friendly and you engage with them, and some of them are not having a good day. And I'm just trying to imagine myself when the officer says, can I see your insurance and your license? And so I hear what you're saying, officer. You want me to show you my paper. So my insurance and my license. You hear what I said, give me, but if it was a heated discussion, I could see how me just listening and not interrupting and over talking. And then when he's finished acknowledging what he said and then respond, I could see that working.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my time.
Somehow you were thinking of the experience you've had with with speeding tickets and how different officers handle it differently, some more politely than others, more civilly than others. But you do think that this technique could be helpful in various different discussions to get things on the right track, to cool things down. Keep things under control, because things often do go a little out of control. I'm not sure I got that all straight, actually.
You're muted, Linda.
Now you get to pick a lucky person, Daniel.
Oh, and Daniel, I think your microphone is against
that what it is?
your collar. I'm not sure if is that
What's
or
that?
something has a little noise to it. The
Really?
microphone.
It's like it's rubbing up against something or shh.
You sure that's me? I've never had complaint about. Well, I'm the only one.
Let me just
Really?
test. Yeah, I just muted you and it stopped. So you need to unmute.
Are you twisting? They stop.
There's something.
No, it's when you move in the chair. Because
Really?
it was, when you just got up.
How about right now? Is this okay?
As long as you don't move.
Yeah, as long as don't breathe.
Just hold it.
But we'll just have to do it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we know what it is because I heard it too.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of a rustling, but it's
we'll tolerate it this time.
You might be hearing a piano in the background, actually. That might be it.
Just go with it.
Yeah, I'm on a desk treadmill, by the way. Okay, where am I? Okay. Well,
you have to pick someone to listen to.
I have to pick somebody. Who hasn't? Right. This is like round 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Katrina, right? Okay.
Oh, Daniel.
Okay, so one thing I really like about this approach is I see it as a valuable first step. I mean, I'm not sure I think it can stand alone as having, all conversations be just like this. But I feel that in our society, what's really missing now, especially in political discourse, is an absence of new ideas. And one writer I like a lot said, when things are polarized, when politics are polarized, it means there's just a real poverty of creative thinking.
Yeah. So something that you really like about this technique, even though it may not hold up all on its own, is to help with this dearth of new ideas, this lack of new ideas, and because of the polarization, or that there's the extreme polarization, and that you're saying there's a relationship between the polarization and the lack of new ideas, creativity.
Right. So people can't express new ideas until they feel they're being heard first. And I
Mm.
know I read a lot and I feel like I have a lot of ideas, and I find it really frustrating because I feel like they're stuck in me and nobody ever listens to me. So when I'm in this kind of situation and I talk and I hear people listening, it's like my loneliness of thinking has been conquered. And it's a really very nice feeling. It kind of opens me up. And I assume that this happens to other people too.
Yeah, so you have a lot of new ideas. You read a lot, you come up with a lot of new ideas, but it just feels like nobody listens. And so there's, yeah, when somebody, when people are listening to you, like here, I've just forgotten that last bit, but you know, there's it's something like you feel some safety to share. Like people don't share ideas unless they know they're being listened to. Is that right?
Right, although I didn't use the word safety as such. I'm not too worried about safety, but for me it's more sort of, if nobody's listening, there's no sense of togetherness. Whereas if people are listening, I feel like we're in it together and new ideas are produced much better together than they are in individual minds. New ideas come only through kind of collective action, in my opinion.
Yeah, so it's not about safety, it's about togetherness, it's about being heard, and new ideas come to life when there's a togetherness, when people are being heard.
And another thing that brings new ideas to life is this process of slowing down. When people are in such a hurry, it's impossible. Things run by too quickly, and you can't do it. And then the competitiveness also gets in the way. So when you're listening, you're not being competitive. But I'm thinking of an expression people use a lot when they're talking, hey, let me get this straight. But lots of times it's really to be competitive rather than really to get things straight. So lots of times people say, let me get this straight, and then they twist things. They use it as a debating technique. And I like the idea that in this empathetic circle, that's probably verboten.
Yeah, so you you notice this technique that's used that could be used for good, but often it's used not for good, which is, hey, let me get this straight. And yeah, often it's used to twist things when actually it could be used to actually repeat back what people say and to demonstrate listening. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds good. I feel heard, I guess.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay. So, Jane, will you listen to me? What will I say? Yeah, it feels like, I don't know, something about actually having empathy is really important. Having love and appreciation for other people, or not necessarily love, but appreciation, and not being so self-obsessed helps with communication.
So you're talking about how important it is to have some, well, I might have lost this, but listening is very important for communication, because otherwise people become self-absorbed.
Yeah, well, and it's, I mean, it seems like that's the status quo, that we're self-absorbed, and it's not normal for us to actually have the space to tune into others, which is where the exercise, you know, the formal process can help, because we can learn to tune in to others. As Linda said, you know, having the space and the structure enables us to move into letting go of our own self-obsession.
So this particular structure, these empathy circles, can give us a way of keeping from being so self-absorbed. The structure in itself helps that.
So I figure, like, you know, I imagine I wouldn't know, but getting a speeding ticket for Linda, there's probably a lot going on when that happens. Like, how can you have the space to actually have empathy for the person that's pulled you over and is giving you a speeding ticket? Like, who cares if you're going a couple of kilometers faster than you need to? Like, really, in the scheme of things.
Well, using this for a speeding ticket, if you're getting a speeding ticket, you might not be in a space that's conducive to using this.
Yeah, because maybe there's fear. Maybe there's, you know, maybe we don't know it's fear. It's just like defensiveness, like, So then to have the capacity to be present and to give the other person the honor of empathy, yeah, it could be a big ask. You know, it's not a small thing.
So to give empathy, sounds like give empathy requires a certain kind of state of mind to be able to do that. And we're not always in that state of mind.
Yeah. So I just facilitated a week with kids out in the bush and there was like some 10-year-olds that were just like, after being cooped up for 2 years, as we have been in Melbourne, like just with sticks bashing things and, you know, being really dangerous. And, you know, it's like, what do we do with these kids? But then to actually come, like, so we need to keep them from hurting someone or themselves, but as well as see the situation that they're in, you know, kids who are desperate for some release, they're full of anger. So finding the compassion is really important, and it's a skill.
So I would say that what you talked about was having compassion and finding the compassion to work with and to use this with people that are upset.
I mean, yes, it's kind of, we're managing two things. We need to keep ourselves safe and have compassion for the protagonist. Yeah. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify what I was saying.
I know. Yeah, good. Thank you. So I guess Edwin, will you listen to me?
Okay, listening.
So I think we've been talking about not only the state of the people that are, say, in the circle, but the state of the person who's leading the circle. And that's important that you come to the circle as with the idea of listening, so that that's the focus. As a leader, that's what I would want to come to it as a focus.
So if you're facilitating an empathy circle, you're the facilitator or leader, you want to come at it with the sort of the intention of nurture listening or foster
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah, and I think the other, as for the circles like on Monday, the important part was that everybody was able to talk about where they were coming from. So it gave me great insight into, say, a police officer and and for what a facilitator was thinking and saying, as well as my own experiences in the world with police.
So the taking part in the empathy circle, you were able to understand the police better. You were able to understand others better, as well as yourself.
Yeah, and I think for me, understanding myself is a really important factor, even though I'm not the leader. In this case, I wasn't necessarily the leader, but understanding myself is really kind of what I'm after, because that gives me the great insight into how I feel about police, what I think about what's happening in the world around it, and to look at both my own experience plus the broader experience of, well, in this case, the United States. But
So really understanding yourself is important to you, like around the issue of policing, to understand yourself in the relationship to policing, and then also the bigger picture of what's happening in the United States is important.
yeah. And I think it's from that kind of discussions that clarity can come. Maybe not fixing about fixing, that's a little large, but if there's clarity, and that's really important to me.
So you really value the feeling of clarity. That's an important value to you.
Yeah. And maybe putting the other part that was important in this discussion was to, when you talk to people, real people, that an issue that seems so huge, so broad, so, oh, what can I ever do about it, because it's so big, and you talk to real people, then you can, it's, for me, it's easier to say, oh, well, maybe I could do this. Maybe if I looked at this situation in a different way, that would help.
So these issues seem very large, very mega issues, but if you can talk to people who are about these issues, it seems more manageable. It's maybe something you feel like you can, there's more that you could do.
And that in itself is really helpful. All right, time.
Yeah, just being able to have that sense of being able to do something is really helpful. Okay, we have 10 minutes left, it looks like. So it looks like 2 more rounds. I'll speak to Linda.
All righty, I'm ready.
Yeah, I made some notes, and the first one was about that the empathy circle is the structure, but I did want to mention that all dialogue has some kind of a structure. It's maybe just not explicit, right? There's the structure is whoever's the most aggressive and talkative, most extroverted dominates. So there is a structure there.
Okay, so you were following up on I mentioned that I described it it as a structure, and you say all dialogue has structure, even if it's helter-skelter. There's structure in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the part about maybe the most extroverted gets the space and gets heard more than everyone else.
Yes, the extrovert gets X'd out, and the introvert takes over the conversation. It can happen.
Yeah. Yes. So the other was about families doing empathy circles in the family. The thing about the empathy circle, it's a clearly articulated set of rules, right? The rules aren't unspoken. They're like, here's the rules, and then getting everyone's agreement to follow the rules is another thing. Like we get into conversations and maybe the rules are kind of negotiated and stuff. They're not clear, they're not explicit. But in the empathy circle, we're saying, these are the rules, this is what we agreed to, does that work? And you get everybody's buy-in. And I think there's something about that that creates some kind of a grounded, it creates clarity and groundedness.
So you're speaking in terms of getting the family together, and this empathy circle, their rules is already set. These are the rules. You get people to buy into it or agree to the rules and to participate. Whereas when it's not, then rules are negotiated and compromises are made or whatever. But with empathy circle, it's set. And the key is to get everybody to agree to the rules, buy into it for it to be successful.
Yeah, it sets a certain tone. And what we do, like I have done empathy circles in my family, we go 2, maybe 3 hours. And then suddenly the mindset of fairness, turn taking, full listening, it's almost like something clicks and it's like integrated in the awareness of everyone. And then we actually just stop doing the reflection and everybody's in that attuned state of feeling, oh, I'm really feeling heard, I'm really feeling connected. So it in that sense, the empathy circle is sort of like training wheels, right? It's keeping everybody on track, and then you start riding, but you're maintaining the quality of connection.
So you're using training wheels on a bicycle as an analogy. Excuse me. And with the family, your family, you've had these circles, 2 to 3 hours duration.
4.
And
gone as many as 4.
Yeah. Several hours of engaging in the empathy circle process. And then at some point, it seems like the convergence of the minds and feelings come together, and there's caring and loving and understanding, clarity. And
yeah,
it just happens.
And it's amazing, like, families, even families that are functional, there is always this resentment. Oh, I'm not really getting heard in my family. My family doesn't really listen. I have to fight to be heard or whatever. So there is all these little irritations in any family that I've and sort of arguments that grow out of that. So having this as a foundational practice, I think it creates a sense of fairness. And when you've been heard and everybody's been heard, it just creates a better energy. And you've got a mechanism for problem solving within the process too.
So, even in the best of families, there's a little, pull there, tug and push and pull there just a little bit. But the empathy circle gives you that solid foundation within which to work. And everybody gets heard and nobody feels pushed out or let out, because in regular families, sometimes some people get left out.
They do, yeah.
Strong
Tell me a
survives.
family, if you know of a family where somebody's not feeling a little resentment, that they don't really get heard, let me know that family. Okay, that's my time. Thanks.
All right. And I will ask Jane if she would listen. Okay, I think you're muted.
I just,
Is she
did
muted?
you hear me
Oh.
this time? I just unmuted.
Okay. We've been talking about the empathy circle, and it was touched on Monday about the police bridging the divide between the police and the community. And I want to talk a little bit more about the police.
Okay. You would like, for this particular round, you would like to talk a little bit more about the police, and you were in on those conversations on Monday.
Yeah. Where my location, I've been involved with conversations with a person that was brought in for this, with one of her functions is to help bridge the divide between the community and the police. And we've been talking about, because I've been engaged with empathy circles with Edwin, I've been talking to this person about having some training, because sometime this year, hopefully they'll have training, and somehow bringing this in as a training exercise for the police officers.
So you've been working with people and hoping that this is a structure that the police can be trained in.
Yes. And the goal is to create a, excuse me, I don't know why my throat, create a procedure. If a citizen has an interaction with a police officer, nothing serious, no, shootings and deaths and stuff like that, but they have a traffic violation or a domestic issue or something nonviolent, and they have an engagement with the police officer and they don't feel like they were treated fairly. I keep hearing that word tonight. They don't think they were treated fairly, or, they have issues to the point they want to file a complaint.
So let's see, the goal is, I think you said that the goal is that this structure would be useful in situations where there's a complaint, not even necessarily a big complaint, but just that big isn't a good word, but anyway, a complaint, no matter what.
Nonviolent complaint, yeah.
Yeah, valid complaint.
Well, instead of, so the rule is they have to, when the report is made, a complaint is made, it's on paper, it's made. So rather, the officer will have an opportunity to choose between getting a ding on his record, going that disciplinary route where they have to investigate the whole incident and come to a conclusion, or to sit down with the citizen, if the citizen agrees, and have this dialogue that we're having now.
So the officer would be given a choice of having it be formal or having it be working with this kind of a circle entity.
Yeah. And, we even talked about having it where the supervisor would have to mandate the officer. And that goes back to what you were saying about people will have to want to be in the circle.
And it is also, maybe the supervisor will have to instigate this or start.
Yes. So that's our concern. If the officer says, yes, I'll do it, as opposed to it's just part of the procedure when I get a complaint. I think it's going to make a difference.
So you think that one of the differences is that the officer will actually agree to it, have to agree.
Okay, welcome back, everybody.
I
So
have to say, I feel like Captain Kirk. I know what it is. It feels like to be beamed up.
I love that feeling.
Transported back into this space. Great, beat me up, Scotty. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, so welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a good experience in your breakouts. We actually want to hear how it was for you. But before we do that, we're going to say a little something about the Empathy Circle training. And so, Lisa, is there more you wanted to say about that, or is it my job to say? I can't remember.
I'll talk a little bit if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
Awesome, and then we'll do the debrief.
Yeah.
And so, as a follow-on to all of this, people have been exposed to really listening, and I myself do some mediation, and the challenge of listening to understand rather than respond is a real art. And I can't emphasize enough the value we feel it has for public safety and policing, being police to peace, where we're really promoting policing that's effective, empathetic, and just. So as a follow-on to this, so there's something more to do for everyone. We're offering through the culture, building a culture of empathy, an in-depth training, 5 weeks on Empathy Circle, starting on Monday, May 9th. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. Also, we'll be sending a follow-on email. It's a free training, and we hope that it's something you will take advantage of in order to learn this skill. In the example I gave you, the example of an officer at the door, or someone, or a traffic stop, or really any interaction between the police and citizens, community members, there are an estimated 70 million interactions between the police and the community every year. Think about that number, and think about how much could go wrong, and we know does go wrong, and how much listening and empathic listening could really address that, which is why we were so excited about agencies being part of this and communities being part of this. So I put this link in the chat, Monday, May 9th, the 5-week training. It is free. The free training is on how to facilitate an empathy circle for yourself, right? So this effective foundation and gateway practice, which we're hoping you can bring back to your agency or your community, and also nurture an empathic way of being for yourself. And again, we'll be sending an email after this. There's a brief, we will be loading in just a moment, a brief survey about your experience today. It's a Google Doc. Please take a moment to fill it out. We're very interested in how you felt and what your experience was of this, so we can improve this experience. And one final thing, and that is Police to Peace is a national policing reform organization made up of police leaders and community leaders and activists and civil rights lawyers and even high school students who are all coming together to change the way policing is. We are launching a national event for anyone who is in policing on Tuesday, May 3rd, called the Peace Officer Promise. Peace Officer Promise is like a Hippocratic oath that physicians take, but it's for policing. Imagine something that brings the power of the intent to do no harm to policing, where police agencies are making that promise to their communities. And even if you are a community member and you're not a policing agency, this is something you can inspire your police agency to do. Once again, it's free. It's a national movement. Agencies around the nation will be taking this promise, making this promise locally and customized for their own location. And what we would like to see is we'd like to see participation so that we all get policing, as I've said, that's for everyone, effective, empathetic, and just. And with that, I will give it back to our wonderful host, Lou.
Thank you, Lisa, and thanks so much for the work that your organization is doing. I'm just grateful for it personally, and it seems so well aligned with what the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, is trying to help create in the world. I would also just like to say about the training, the 5-week training, it just develops your skills in being able to hold the empathy circle and to deal with difficult situations that come up in an empathy circle sometimes. It increases your capacity to do that. Bill Filler, who is here in the room, his hand up, he and I and Edwin and others developed this training. All of the empathy circle facilitators who were in your circles today were trained with this training. And so it just gives you some idea of the kind of capacity that you can build by taking the training, and it is free. Bill, is there anything else you'd like to say about the training before we go to the debrief?
No, it's just that it's a much deeper dive into what you experienced today.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. So we would really love to hear what you are taking, how you experienced today, and what you are taking away from it. And maybe also what your plan, if you have any plans, what your thoughts are about doing empathy circles in your organization. So any of those things. Is there someone that would like to share? Yeah, go ahead. How do you say your name? Turia?
You got it. And I don't have such full answer to the questions you were asking, but what I'm concerned about is that there's so much information in the chat that I want to capture, but because of the formatting of this group, I don't see a saved chat as an option. And so did I understand that this is all going to be emailed to us anyway?
Yes, so I think
will.
Lisa.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
If I may, yes, thank you, Lou. After the event, we do that for privacy reasons. We run policing events quite a bit. And so saving the chat is sometimes not a good idea. We will be emailing out the chat that's, of course, appropriate for everyone after this event. So thanks so much for asking.
And thank you for helping me with my techno anxiety, because I never know if it's my problem or, so thank you.
And Turia, is there one thing you could say about what you're taking away from today?
Oh, I'm taking away deep, rich hope and promise, such meaning. Like, can this really happen? Can this really happen? So I'm betting you'll see my name come up again in response to your email. So thank you. I appreciate it. I just want to understand and learn more about these organizations, because I wasn't here Monday, so I don't feel like I have a full picture of it yet, but I'm very enriched and enthused. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Karen.
I'm really loving what you guys created. I really appreciate this. I think it's an amazing communication tool and technique, and I'm very much interested in taking the training, but Mondays don't work for me. So I'm hoping that you have other times coming up, or other options.
Yeah, we had been alternating cohorts on Mondays and Saturdays. This is a Monday cohort. So yes, we do cohorts at other times, and so there will be another time. I don't know. I don't think we currently have a cohort that's planned beyond the Monday one at this point, but um, we'll keep you informed. Or well,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, you can let us know that you'd, I guess, like to be on an emailing list, and maybe you could type your email address into the chat, and we'll get that and put you on an email list. Robin?
Hi. I just wanted to share that David was our facilitator and he was absolutely fabulous. And one of the things that he mentioned, and that it's one of the takeaways that I'm going to take, but he did mention it, is that this reflective talking enables you for a second to truly listen, even if it's something you don't necessarily agree with. And it makes you focus on the listening to be able to reflect back and really gives that person space to do that in. I think it has to be mastered for sure, because we live in a world with so many distractions and so many things going on, but to be able to just hone in on what that person is saying for those few minutes is so important. And it's just a valuable tool. And I thank you for this opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Robin. Anyone else? That I'd say what Robin's describing is something that I hear often with people who are learning empathy circles for the first time, that they realize how much internal talk goes on when they're trying to listen to somebody, and having to actually focus enough that you can reflect back what they're saying interrupts that pattern some. And yeah, so that is one of the benefits of empathy circle. Daniel.
Yeah, one unexpected takeaway I have from today's session is sort of the social movement aspect of all of this. That, in our society now, so many people, especially younger people, are so afraid to say what they really think. And I think that if we had a lot of these empathy circles, little by little, if people have this opportunity to talk and actually be listened to for what they actually say, rather than what people are jumping to the conclusion they will say, then I think that it could spread, and that to say, hey, you know what, there are places where you actually can say what you think, and not feel like you're going to get in trouble for it. I know some people use the expression brave space. But I also wanted to throw in that with the talk about police, I do some facilitating with police, part of their training. And police, maybe as much as any people in this society, are afraid to say what they think. And I've had a number of police say that, I always am worried, I'm in such a closed structure. I can't go talking about what I really think. So I think police have an opportunity to say what they really think as human beings rather than as police. That could be an important part of the movement.
Thank you, David. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. Edwin.
Yeah, Daniel, I just so appreciate what you're saying about a movement, because that's how I see this, as an empathy movement. And the empathy circles are just one practice within that larger movement. And the movement really consists of bringing people together to be able to listen to each other and hear each other and to understand each other and build trust actually together, because that is really the foundation. I think you're actually mentioning it in the circle too, that creativity and innovation comes when we're heard and seen and acknowledged. And so this is a bigger vision than just, oh, here's one little process, the empathy circle. This is more like a first step, a gateway practice that, for about 14 years of working on the topic of empathy, I've just found this to be the easiest first step practice that really takes you a long ways, just for connection, for conflict resolution, and then it's a gateway into that creativity and innovation. So just want to build on what you were saying. So thanks.
Thanks, Edwin. Betsy.
Yeah, well, I attended Monday's session, and obviously I'm here today. But prior to that, I also went to a Braver Angels workshop on depolarizing conversations about race. And I like this approach. They're different approaches, and I respect what they're doing. But I really feel an affiliation with this approach, partly because of my background. I just think that it's so important to not only recognize recognize what someone is saying, but really listening to the feeling behind it. And you don't get that in a debate, really. You get that in a safe place where everybody is heard.
Thanks,
So,
Betsy.
and I just had a question about the training. Excuse me. The fifth Monday lands on Memorial Day. Were you planning to have a training on Memorial Day?
Bill?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So thanks, Betsy. Yeah, I've been involved in some Bravery Angels work too, and the skill of paraphrasing is one of the skills that they teach, and the empathy circle certainly helps really people really practice that skill. So that's one of the great things about it. Rosa.
Yeah, I just want to. Oh, my heart is very full right now. I want to echo what Edwin said about building a larger empathy movement, and also about how this is a practice that enhances so many other practices. And one of the things I love about it is that I experience it like a muscle, that we develop as we practice it, this being able to listen in a way that we can reflect back. And what I love about Empathy Circle is that it's the most amazing, wonderful community building kind of practice that I've ever encountered, where it's like, it's like you're lifting weights, but it's like totally awesome and fun and connecting. And, so I really see it as a community building process, even more than a training, but in the process we're developing amazing skills. So so glad everybody's here, and so glad to hear everything everyone's saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. Yeah, in my empathy breakout, those feelings were expressed too. That in just the very short time that we were together, just by listening to each other, a sense of connection and a little bit of community and belonging was built. And it is amazing when you start listening, when you really start listening to one another, how quickly that develops. And for me too, that's one of the beautiful things about empathy circles. Larry.
Yeah, I love the empathy circles, and we had an incredible circle tonight, and the equality and empathy came very clear. And I want to share one quick quote from Byron Katie, which I'll put in the chat, so hopefully it'll go in the email as well. But I think it sums up what we're all saying. A teacher of fear cannot bring peace on earth. We've been trying to do it that way for thousands of years. The person who turns inner violence around, the person who finds peace inside and lives it, is the one who teaches what true peace is. We're waiting for just one teacher. You are the one. Byron King.
Thanks, Larry. Anyone else? I see Graham has a hand up. Before you speak, Graham, I just want to acknowledge, I just realized I lost track of time. We are 6 minutes past the time that we agreed we would end. So if there are people who feel they need to go, certainly feel free to do that. But as long as people want to share, we're going to keep going to hear what people would like to share about what they're taking away from today or how today was for them. Graham?
I always get the same feeling when I'm in an empathy circle. And Lou, you talked about it, how that experience of connecting with others, it's a really visceral experience. And I enjoyed that thoroughly today. But I would like to, I'd like to say something which is not exactly on topic, but it's to do with police to peace or peace to police. And we had two references in our group where there was really grief. The feelings of grief were around that the police themselves are not part of this circle. And to me, this is, and I'm hoping that Lisa's hearing me, because in a way it's a message to Lisa, but the fact that the police are not here is just a bummer. Absolutely.
Well, Graham, we invited them.
I know,
and we'll
but
continue
it's a
to.
bummer
I
for
And
appreciate
there were some police folks here, I believe.
Yeah, but
and on Monday there were many more. So we'll keep trying.
okay.
Rome wasn't changed in a day. I agree with you. That's why we have police and peace in our same word, our
And we
same name.
And we can all send out invitations to our friends who are police.
Sure, absolutely.
And it also might make sense, you know, Rosa made this suggestion on Monday. It might make sense to do a police only event first and let them experience this process first before inviting them into mixed circles with community members. That might be a good first step. Bill?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond. Betsy put a question in the chat, and I won't take too long here. But depending upon the circumstances, you do have to adjust your techniques. And I won't go into the details here. But I will say that once you listen, the effect is the same. And if you come to the training, we'll talk about it more. Thanks a lot.
Bill, could you say what the question was so we have more context?
Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, how is a in-person empathy circle meeting different from one online in the Zoom room?
And your answer again? Just because I forgot.
My answer is that depending upon when you're talking about in person, are you out in the street? Are you, with a meeting of other people? What are the, the conditions, et cetera, you have to adjust techniques. But once you listen and a person feels heard, the effect is the same.
Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Sure.
I'm going to let Valerie go first because she hasn't spoken yet. Valerie?
Thanks. So I just had a question, actually. And it might be an obvious answer, but I was just wondering about the invitation to police. Is that international or is that US?
Lisa?
It's US. There are 18,000 police agencies in the United States, so that's about as much as we can handle. Most countries have only one.
So we just to clarify, we shouldn't invite the police from Canada to participate. Is that right?
Sure. They're just absolutely. They're just not on our list. We have the US. We have the list of US policing agencies. Absolutely invite Canada, which is very closely knit. Any country which came out of Britain has peace officers as the basis for their criminal justice system. Canada is perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. Daniel?
I think police being a no-show is indicative of just how much fear police have to express themselves. And if I could give an example, I've written a few reports on meetings about public safety here in Chicago. And at the last meeting I went to, we call them town halls. 1,000, a few hundred people show up. And I was sitting at a table with a woman who's in charge of police officers in charge of community policing in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods of Chicago. I told her I had written a couple reports, and she got all excited. And I said, okay, I'll send you the reports. These are already on the internet. They're public reports. So I sent them to her, and I got a form letter back saying, I will seek permission to get back to you on this issue. And that was like a month ago, and she never did. So she was terrified even to acknowledge reading my publicly available report. So that gives an idea of just how terrified I think police are of expressing themselves, even quasi-publicly.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, because of what the consequences for them might be, right? Yep.
Yeah, or they perceive it that way, yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah. Okay, anyone else want to share something about how they experienced today, or something that they're taking away from today? I think, do we actually have any participants? I see we're mostly ECs, but we do still have some participants. Are there any participants that want to share more? Betsy?
I just wanted to add very quickly that the one police officer I saw in this group before we broke down into rooms, it was, I think his last name was Frank, and he left after he found out what the question was.
Okay.
Because it didn't pertain to the police per se, so he left. It sounds like that's maybe why he left.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to the EC facilitators
I would like to say
for,
something.
oh yeah, go ahead, BJ.
I'm sorry. I just like to say thank you for facilitating the circle. I'm BJ. I'm a mediator in Dallas. And what I say is that this will go global. Patience, 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 vigilant, 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 and brainstorming. Okay. I think I heard someone say that the Officer Frank left when he found out the title. I think Betsy said that. So I think there's an opportunity. If that is the case, there's an opportunity to turn that around, because this will go global. This will go global because mediation is needed. I'm telling you, not just with police officers, but first responders and firefighters. So it's just a matter of time. So hang in there.
Thank you, BJ. Yeah, thank you. A lot of people agreeing with you there. All right, well, that's a beautiful way to close the session. So I just want to thank all of our facilitators for being here and doing such fine work. And thank you, participants, for coming and being curious and wanting to learn more. And I hope you'll come and participate in the training. The information about it is in the chat. And if you're not, if you can't make it to that training, I hope you will maybe respond to the email with your email address. Or Edwin, how can we get people who can't come to the training but might be interested in future trainings? What should they do?
There was the website was posted, bestempathytraining.com. You go there and track. All the information is there.
About upcoming trainings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, great. And also just want to thank Lisa and Police to Peace again for inviting us to do this with them and for the wonderful work that they're doing. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks for your facilitation, Lou. Bye, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Thanks to the team.
Bye, everyone.
Takes a village.
It does.